So when we talk about how can we collect evidence, already we've got evidence. This sheet that you did, this to me is evidence. I would collect these and I'd say to the kids, make sure your name's on each one of these somewhere. This is evidence that they've been part of a team, that they've made some decisions. You know, when they do the sticky notes, I try and have a variety of colours. So I'll say to the kids, okay, look, you know, make sure your name's on. If it's a purple one, you know, Dave's on the purple one, and we go from there. They stick them all in their folders. That's it, more evidence.
So would you have to photocopy that? So that each
got
one?
No, they're in groups. So I would have it with their names on it, and I would note down that they've all participated in it.
So you just pick it up, maybe to the note that they've done it.
Yeah, and look, I haven't actually thought about photocopying it. I try and not use so much paper.
That's okay to photocopy and then write the student's name.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Just so you're developing an evidence folder sort of thing? Developing
an evidence folder. And you know, we use this word portfolio. The whole idea about portfolios, again, you've got to show that growth from where they were at the beginning to where they finish up with. And that's really important. So what do we do after this in terms of that negotiated curriculum? So we might pick out one thing. So for example, it might be about examining jobs. And so the job was a sales executive, and the question asked of the students was, what OHS could be included within that job? So these mind mapping type things they love. And often if they can create them, there's some wonderful programs on the computers where they can create their own. And then they came up, this is what my kids came up with. This was from an intermediate class. They said, well, if you're a sales executive, these are the things you might have to do with regard to OHS. But it doesn't have to be just like that. The other thing, and this is when they get pretty good, this one's actually one that's on the web, and it's about time management. Well, my kids came up with the most visual things when they knew they had permission to be bright and happy and visual about it. So this one's about time management, all the things. So you've got the main arms, and then under each one it's got all the little bits saying all the things you could do. All of this is evidence. It's evidence-based that the students are not only understanding a concept, but they're showing how they can problem solve. They're showing how they can be a leader in some of the things. Even when they start to ask questions like here, the who, what, where, when, why and how, already they're starting to think that little bit further. So any of this development work is evidence. When I attended the first QA session of VALA back in, I think it was 2003, and in the Eastern region there was one gathering of people. I have never seen such perfect work in all my life. There was not a spelling mistake, a scrawny bit of paper, anything. It was the most beautifully presented documents ever. And I thought, what a joke. Us teachers have worked really hard to make it look like the kids have done some great work. What do I like to see now? I like to see evidence like this. Our students do a visual diary when they come into the program. This is real. You know, the lolly papers. I said to them, all we're going to use is magazines, guys, pictures. You know, they brought photos in, a bit of scrapbooking stuff. Right, this is evidence. This is real. It's got mistakes. It's got shocking grammar. It's got MSN language. I had to get my daughter to interpret everything. But throughout the year, they've developed about who they are and what they like.
That's an ongoing thing.
This is an ongoing thing. You know, we say to the kids if they've, I've finished that task, we'll do a bit of work on your visual diary about who you are. We give them a lead-in sheet that maybe has 20 tasks on it that says, you know, if you were going to give yourself a tattoo, what would the design be and why would you choose it? What meaning does it have? So they would do the design and write a little bit about it. You know, there's a whole host of things. So I have got that visual diary assignment, so if people want it, just email me and I'll email it out. But they come up with that. Again, we said to the kids, what type of books do you want? Some wanted big scrapbooks, some of the boys wanted tiny ones. One of them wanted one of those fold-out, you know, mapping type things. That's fine. All of them did it. And that was what was important. So, that's real evidence. What we don't see now in quality assurance is everything that is so perfect. It's unbelievable it comes from a VCAL student.
If it was literacy, that'd be a draft, and then you'd need to get them to do that work all fixed up.
At foundation level, I probably wouldn't, because I was using this We did use it for literacy, and we would go through it, but in terms of what went in the book the first time,
Is it C? Well, we do CGEA. I think
Yeah.
that's strict. That's a
it's
bit
a bit stricter probably.
stricter. Yeah.
But I would get them to redo it, but I wouldn't get them to change what's in this, because this is them.
Yeah.
And I would say to them, look, can we talk about some of the grammatical errors and have another go at it? But I want you to leave this in because you put such a lot of work into it, and it's really important that you can keep that as your record. And some of them put little pockets at the back, and then when they fixed up the work, they would put it in the pocket. But I don't want to ever change who they are, but I want them to see how they've developed over the year, and that's what's really important there.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So is that aligned to some outcomes, or is it just something you like them to do?
Everything we do is aligned to outcomes. Sometimes we decide after the event what outcome it's aligned to, and really if you're teaching VCAL, that's what you should do. You assume that it's going to meet some outcomes. So this was done predominantly in literacy and personal development.
Yep.
But there was bits of work-related skills in there about investigating like careers they wanted, you know, so it cut across a whole lot of areas. But when we look back through each student's book, we found a whole lot of things that we could mark off, you know, as they've done this outcome as well, and they've talked about this. So I never make a decision about what they've met until afterwards. I know we're going to run out of time. Okay, so once we've done those, we might do something like, just say they want to make a board game. Or this is about OH&S, and it's about, this is from Ashwood School. Michael Cole spoke this morning. They run a whole lot of stations, because a lot of these, that's a special school, a lot of their students can't go out into the workforce, so they have workstations set up at their school. They're absolutely fantastic. And so they said to the students, you need to develop a game that teaches about the occupational health and safety at that workstation. So how did they go about it? They investigated ball games, spent a whole day playing games. And then they started to create their own. Can you see the evidence that's happening? The teacher has actually collected this evidence. It's not the kids doing it. That one back, the previous one, you can see the students had to write about what was happening there. So even though the teacher took the photo, the students documented the evidence. Created the game. Each one was placed at their particular workstation, and then they were playing the games. Now these are all students with special needs, and they could come up with something that was pretty decent. So they're the types of processes you can go through, and you could say, and this is what we used to get when we were asked for evidence at QA, we would get the board game at the end, nothing else. Right? To me, it's the development work that happens in between that's really important. And you look at VCE art or graphic design or wood technology or food technology, it's not about the end product now, it's about the process you use to get to that end product. And that's the same with VCAL. As I say to the kids, at foundation level or intermediate, if the project doesn't work, it doesn't matter. You've given it a good shot, and look at all the things we've learned in between. At senior, they have to work. I tell them that, but you know. So what evidence can we collect from an activity like that? You saw it. There was photos, there was kids playing the game. I think they actually did some evaluations of the games. They checked if it did meet OH&S standards. You know, there was a whole lot of other things that they could do that was evidence from that board game activity. And you have to do them over a period of time. You can't just flog the same thing with these kids for a whole day. They just won't cope with it. And then they start to dislike it. That variety is as important for us as it is for them. And one of the things that I'm really big on is about making sure we don't forget that the whole focus around that work-related skills part of a VCAL program is about employability skills and putting this into practice with the applied learning. So how do we incorporate this into all we do? First of all, we need to start with what they know. We need to use their personal life examples to identify what employability skills they might have. So in the board games, one of the things would be how you pick the team leaders. So teamwork's an employability skill, leadership's like another one. So you would think and say, and you praise the kids up. Oh, I've noticed you're a really good leader, I would like you to lead this task. Or you have got some really creative skills. You would be great in designing the board game, that type of thing. Always keep the task simple to begin with. And they're the types of things that we want to focus on, that whenever we do a task, not only is it meeting the VCAL outcomes, but we're making sure that there's communication involved, a bit of teamwork, some problem solving. How can they be enterprising? They're amazing. When you get them to do those negotiated curriculums, they will then be very enterprising about how they're going to achieve these things. You know, they're very creative with what they do. There's all the stuff about self-management, talking to students about that. What do we do? Plan and organise things using technology, whether it's their phones, their iPods, whatever. Technology is really important in these people's lives, and the scary bit is we're not where they are at it. You know, they are so much better than us, but that should be a learning opportunity. You should get the students, and we run a CFA program or firefighting program, and this is another tangent altogether, but our students went out up in the Dandenong Ranges to the isolated elderly and taught them how to read text messages on their phones, because that was how the government was alerting us to bushfires. And yet all these elderly people, and elderly to the kids was sort of 45 and above. Yeah, I know, I said to them, well that's it, I'm retiring. They taught them how to read their mobile phone, the text messages, because most of them had no idea. So they felt a bit safer knowing that young people could do that. Okay, communication. On your table, you've got ethics in the workplace. We've only got 3 tables happening, so I'm going to give you guys scenario 1, scenario 2, scenario 3. I just want you to talk for 2 minutes about your scenario that's your ethics in the workplace.